Okay, so this is looking at Inventor Professional 2016. We're going to look at a basic setup to get a room looking decent. It's not what Inventor is really built to do. Inventor is very, very good at parts. I would generally say smaller than a car, but occasionally we need a room background. You can do it in other programs like Showcase, you can do it in 3ds Max, but especially if you only want to use Inventor, you don't want to use anything else, this is basically the smartest way to do it that I can see. So we're going to be using part files and we're going to be using new assembly files. I always reset this to millimeters and ISO even though I don't actually use these ones in the new bit. They probably work fine, they just scare me because I'm not used to using this section here. I'm the old-fashioned, so I'm going to go into new at the top here. I'm going to go into standard millimeter IPT. I've got it set to metric on the left-hand side top. I'm also going to make sure I've got a project set up. I've got a few that I've been doing, but I'll just start up a new one to make sure you're happy with that. So the projects allow the organization of the part files and the assembly files to be much, much easier. They're not particularly complex to understand, so there's a huge benefit to actually using them. So I've just pressed projects there. I'm not sure if the new Inventor does this or not, but certainly old versions they get very upset if you've got a file open already and you press projects, but I haven't. So let's go over here to new. I'm going to go to single user project, which is fine. I'm going to set the project name to base room. I've already got 2 of these recorded. We'll just do it. Next. And then it goes finished. It starts to complain because it's saying it's not there. That's because it's brand new. Okay. And now it's set to that. So what these are the different projects I've got. So everything I save from now on will always go into there. Now the next time, I'll just go done. The next time I come into Inventor, if I want to change that, I go into projects and I change it to something different, and it'll go to that lot of saves. But I'm using this one, so that's fine. Done. What are we doing next? So let's go over to new. Let's standard, make sure metric, standard millimeter IPT, double click. And wait for it to wake up. So there's been a few things moved around. I'm used to using Inventor 2012. I've used 13, 14, 15 once or twice. But there's a few things moved around. If you have been stuck on 2010 or 2012, things will be a little bit odd. This freeform is pretty new. These are in different places. But let's just look at starting up a 2D sketch. So you click over here. I'm going to click on that one. So I'm going to start with a wall. Just checking how we are, 3 minutes, that's fine. Start with a wall. Rectangle, click here. I click over here. I'm going to press D. You might prefer to press dimension up here. I tend to use the key D. Take this up and we're going to set this to my wall width. So I'm going to go for around about 4 or 5 meters. I think I'll do one 4 meters and one 6 meters for fun. So we'll go 4,000. Now that's probably going to change. I'm probably going to actually set that to 4,050, which sounds strange, but there's a reason for it. And we're going to go ticks this 4 meters and an extra 50 millimeters as well. Now it looks like it's just disappeared. It hasn't. It's because it's scaled up so much. So now we're going to check the height. Now the room I'm in at the moment has got about a 2 meter and a bit, about 200. This can vary quite a lot. I mean, Revit defaults to about a 4 meter room, but that's obviously really industrial rooms where you've got a cavity up above. Anything over 3 meters in a residential will normally kind of raise eyebrows unless you've got a particularly large ceiling. 4 meters would be very odd. But this is quite a small room, but that's fine for me. I might actually set this up to 500. And height-wise, I'm not going to need this extra 50. You'll understand why that's there later on. So I'm going to finish that sketch up on the top right-hand side here. Gonna extrude. Whoa, I just pressed the wrong button there. Let's fix that. Extrude onto this section. I'm gonna set this to 50. If you're wondering why that was 4 meters and 50, you probably start to understand now, because I'm making these 50 thick. I don't really like the new area here. I'll usually go up and use this one on the top left, the older type. Okay, so there's my wall. Now, as far as how we change things, so the generic is up here. So the generic is the color it's set to at the moment. Now we're going to go more into the sort of texturing and all the rest later on. But they're now in tools and they're in material there. So if I click on material, this is where I can start to go in and play with things. Now we've got access to the Inventor material library. We've also got access to, let's get this right, the Autodesk material library. Now, a lot of people I know, I'm a modeler to heart, and that's my specialty. So as far as the making things look pretty and messing around with those materials, I can do it and I'm fairly competent at it, but it's not something I particularly enjoy. It's not something I have a flair for. This is what Autodesk Material Library is all about. It is full of real life quality materials. The Inventor Material Library, you've got a decent list, you can see it there. You know, there's a fair bit of stuff. But when you switch this over to the Autodesk Material Library, it's just a mountain of things to use. Now, if you want to turn around and say, well, I can do the settings myself better, if you've got nothing better in your life to do than go through these and try and outsmart Autodesk in every one of these, go for it. But I think it's a pretty amazing list. There's so much stuff in there, it's really hard to fault. At the end of the day, if you want perfection, the only way you're going to get perfection is really to start working on things like Photoshop and using things like Showcase. Inventor has got a I don't want to say a dumbed down interface, it doesn't have the same capabilities as these other programs, and quite deliberately its strengths are in other areas. But to be honest, if you want perfection, you really have to start going the Photoshop way. That's the way most professionals will do perfection. But Inventor is not for that. We're trying to get good looking models, which is what we're going to achieve, I hope. So that's where it's hidden away. It's now in materials. I don't have to go into environments and into Studio just now. I will be later on. So that's this wall done. Let's save this out as save, and we'll call this base wall 4x6. Now it's actually 4050, I know that, but that's fine, I understand what that is. So let's just go and save. So the next thing we're going to do is do a very similar wall. Now I can be lazy about how I do this. If I save this as, and let's make this one no, actually let's be sensible. That really should have been 4. I really shouldn't have saved it as that. I might have to change that file name in a second. But anyway, let's save as and just change this around a little bit. So save as, let's make this one the 6. And I'll go back and change the file name of the other one to 4, and hopefully Inventor won't bite me later for doing that. So let's just save that out, and now change the sizes in here. And we'll change this to 6050. So I've now got 2 separate wall sections. Final thing I'm going to do is go over to new and create a floor. So start new sketch, let's go on to here, and we're going to create a floor. So this does actually need to be 4x6, that's what I was thinking of when I named the other one, but we can fix that later. So let's go for 4 meters by 6. Again, I'm just going to use a 50mm thickness, which will never be seen, but it looks nice. And for the moment, I'm just going to change this. I will change it to a different color later on, but I just want it to look different from the walls right now. Black's a bit much. I'll go for a wood birch. It looks totally incorrectly textured, but I don't care. I just want it to look different to the other ones for the moment. So we'll save this as floor 4x6. That's fine. Doing that incorrectly is not. I know what it is, so it's going to be fine. It's just one of those silly things to save. Okay, so let's build this. New assembly. Now, important thing here. It may work better in the new versions of Inventor, but whenever I've used, like I say, these standard templates, I've always had a world of pain, so I just stay away from them. They're fine, they probably work fine for your project, but I just like to know exactly what Inventor's doing, because if I assume it's doing something correctly, quite often it's not. So standard millimeter IPT, and that's not what I wanted. Let's do that again. New assembly, there we go. So we want assembly, let's have a look here. Standard millimeter IAM sounds good to me. And let's place. So I want all three of these essentially. Let's just see how it arranges them, probably horribly. Now I'm going to want, let's think about this. I want two of those because I want two sets of walls of each type. However, I don't want that, so I only want one of these. Now, you'll notice the way this has been built. I don't know if this is a change. As far as I know, 2012 will lock the first thing you bring in. Possibly it's not locking because I brought them in as a group. But by lock, what I'm talking about, and this is what I want locked, is the floor. And I want it locked using grounded. If you don't ground the biggest object, everything as far as the assembly is just going to make your life miserable. So you really want grounded to be on. That means this will not move for anything else. Generally, grounding more than one thing is a bad idea unless you really know what you're doing or there's a very, very specific reason to do it. We're going to right click on that. That's how you turn it off. You just click on grounded again. But you always want the biggest. I tend to want the biggest object grounded. Now I want that to be the top, so I'm going to right click on this, set current view as top, and now I arrange all the pieces in line with this. So I'm going to constrain this surface with this edge. Let's just look at what it's done. So that makes me happy. It's done it the correct way. Apply. I gently bring this up and just see what's going on. So I want this to be above this for this part. And now I'm going to constrain. Has that done what I wanted? I'm just checking here. Yes. I'm going to constrain this surface to here. Again, check what it's done. Okay, that's not what I wanted, so let's fix it. So to pan, I'm holding in the middle mouse button. So I want that type. Is that better? Yes, that's what I'm after. Apply. Now you can absolutely use lines to assemble things. Every time I've used lines I've paid for it later, so I just tend to use surfaces. It's slower, it's annoying, it's boring, but it works. And with this type of scene I intend to use this more than once. Let's just check I've actually done this the right way around. Top, yes I have, that's good. Now I'm going to adjust the home in a moment, but I'll just fix a few more pieces to this. So 2 of these walls are most of the time going to be hidden, because most of the time you're going to be looking in and just seeing 2 walls. You're not going to need the other 2, but I'm going to put them in place anyway. So let's constrain this piece here to this edge. Apply. Let's constrain the top of this to the top of this. That way round. Apply. And finally, let's constrain this edge. Oh, now let's be careful here. Let's constrain this edge to this. It won't do it because it's guessing the wrong way around. That's the way around I want. Apply. Now, because I've given it that extra 50 millimeters, each one overlaps the next one just by 50 millimeters, so it should close up nicely. Theoretically, I'm sure if you put them all together and left that corner out, they'd be fine, but I just prefer this way because I know it'll work. This one onto here. Apply. Let's just see what this end looks like. So I want that way round. Apply, and finally the base. This surface with this one, apply, and one more left. Where be it hiding? It was here. Aha. Let's take that and place it on that surface carefully. That's it on, apply. I want this surface to this one. I'm going to apply that because I think that's right. Yes, that's fine. And then finally the base. So that's the simple base part all assembled. I'm going to click there so I get that view, and I'm now going to right click, set current view as, in fact about there, that's fine. Set current view as home, fixed distance. I'm also going to hide these because I'm only going to use these from time to time. Take the visibility off. I'll probably never use them again, but it's just nice to have them there, just in case. And now if I roll this around and I press the home, or I zoom out and press home, everything gets fixed. As simple as you can make it. I would want virtually all of my pupils, and I'm talking about Scottish standards now, by about 4th year to be competent enough to do that. I would prefer them to add a bunch of other things in there, but that's enough to get going for every project. If they've got some simple layout, or they've got some simple room that's always ready to be used in a project to check lighting and check rendering. So the next thing I'm going to do is start to put in a few details. I'm going to put in coving, I'm going to put in skirting, and we'll probably start to think about doing windows and things like that, and how we can adjust these to make whatever scene we want work.